All right, we are live on YouTube. And I know it's been a while and just wanted to come back. What we're doing today is something a little different. So I have someone who's going to be joining me on doing a Q&A. It's a friend of mine, and we met through social media. Her name is Kelly, and what she's going to be doing is she's going to be asking questions that you guys have asked. And we're going to just have a bit of a dialogue and also have a bit of a topic right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull Kelly into the stream right now and introduce her. There she is. All right. Let me unmute the mic here so she can hear. Hey, Kelly, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
What's up, baby girl? How are you doing?
I'm good. It's nice to see you finally.
I know. And I'm sorry because I'm all teeth and smiles right now because I get to see your face. This is awesome. So can you check this out? You see that in the, oops, I got to reverse it. Do you see in the corner that little ribbon?
Yes.
Do you know what that is? That's a symbol that we came up with. It's orange and purple. Purple is for recovery, right? And I think orange was, it's about self-harm and things like that. So it's kind of a fusion of the two. And purple, I think, is also, you know, a reference to eating disorders as well. So it's kind of like a fusion, what we did with like the multiple banners, you know, how they do for breast cancer and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we kind of made our own version of like an ed awareness campaign. So it's really cool. What's up, guys? Yeah. Everybody's coming in right now. And like I said, this is my friend Kelly, and we're going to do something a bit different today. She has questions from that have been retrieved from you guys. And it's what she's going to do is we're going to talk a bit about a topic, as well as she's going to ask me questions. Bless you. Perfect timing, right? 6 feet, young lady, 6 feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the questions that you guys have. I'll answer it and kind of just give an overall update as to what's been going on. So, by the way, Kelly, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm doing a little better every day.
So, amen.
Yeah.
We're keeping those spirits up, keeping each other pumped up. You know, one of the things that has been an ongoing topic has been about control and things like that. What's up, Jen? Welcome, you guys. What we're doing is we're streaming live on YouTube, and we'll be taking questions from you guys, and Kelly is going to ask me some questions, and we're going to have a little discussion about a topic. So what's up, Jen? You go ahead, Kelly. What questions did you retrieve? I don't know the questions, by the way. What happens is they, Rod and Kelly have retrieved questions via the web through YouTube and Facebook, and to ask me so I can give a very instinctive response. So Kelly, you have some questions lined up for me. You go ahead. Let me know who they're from. We'll give a little shout out and whatnot.
Okay. So the first one actually was something that I asked a few weeks ago, and I just wanted to kind of just to get it out there because I know that we talk about it a lot. But can you just explain what you mean when you say ed head?
Oh, this is a good one. I made up that term, right? I call it ed head. And ed head is eating disorder. It stands for eating disorder. So when I talk about ed head, I talk about the narrative that plays in your mindset, that those things it tells you, the false things it tells you all the time, the confusing things that it tells you, that gray area where an eating disorder or an addiction or something you're going through gets, let's say, gets enhanced or triggered. So ed head, I talk as ed head. For me, my ed head is the abuser. Ed head for me is the abusive side and that person. My ed head has a male voice, for example. It doesn't have a female voice. It actually has a male voice. So I identify my ed head, and that when I say it's an ed head, it means that the eating disorder is the one talking. That's when you get filled with the ed head. Does that make sense to you? Do you now, Kelly?
Yeah.
Does ed head happen to you?
Yes.
And
it does.
What do you notice?
So when I don't really necessarily hear a voice. If I would say it would probably be female. It would probably be very similar to mine, because my ed head causes anxiety.
Yes.
It's not, I don't get destructive with myself. What I end up doing is having some kind of bad thoughts, anxiety running through my head, and it leads to it getting worse and worse and worse, and can actually lead to panic, which for me is a very serious problem. So,
because that can result in something physically going wrong with you, like a seizure or something very volatile.
Yeah, I had a seizure in January, which started with just a little anxiety and then turned into panic. And then I thought I had it under control. And unfortunately, when I was out with my mother and sister that night, I had a pretty massive seizure, which I've never had before. So, it does turn into something pretty bad.
And ed head, when you're talking about it, you bring up a good point, because ed head has so many multifaceted layers to it. So when I'm using a very general expression for something that can have many different dimensions, ed head causes anxiety, causes the panic. It causes confusion. It causes doubt for me, and when we're going through something that's already troubling or already difficult, introducing doubt into the equation never bodes well for us. You know what I'm saying? Is because already I have been in the past lacking confidence and things like that. So ed head can come into play. And what that does is it causes more doubt, confusion. There's nothing positive associated with ed head. It's more of a control thing. Control is a big topic, right? Whether it be controlling for if you're an addict, or if you have an eating disorder, or this general malaise of the coronavirus is going on. People are having a hard time feeling in control. And that, for me, that comes from a place of vulnerability. I've had a lot of historical, very bad things happen in my past, abuse and, things of that nature, as you know. And what that does is that, for me, that the reason, eating disorders are so related to control, aren't they? Like feeling the need to be in control. That need for me stems from a place of being blindsided, being hurt, being assaulted, being, abused. So that's where that need developed from. I didn't come out of the gates feeling the need to be in control out of things. A lot of times control can come from traumatic experiences and not wanting to feel that vulnerable again. And for me, having, mine came with being a female, got attention that I did not want. And some incidences happened, which made me even further, into needing that control. And what's weird is, when we do that, I was thinking about it, feeling that need to be in control makes us feel safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It provides that kind of safety because our world has been so out of control. I've even experienced these traumatic things in hospitals and treatment centers. It actually induced those kind of things as opposed to reducing it. And again, that's not all centers or all places. This has just been my experience with it. Now, with that control, the one thing I notice is when we have a control issue, we start doing things, or I did, mine came in eating disorder forms, right? So my control came where I started restricting. Mine first came with over-exercising and then restricting and things like that. Because my world was so shaken, I was always running. I couldn't explain why I wanted to run so much. But it was because I was trying to run because I couldn't sit still with my thoughts because they were so flashback, horrific. I just didn't even want to think. And that was my way of rhythmically getting it out. And when I started doing that, you notice that it starts with habits, right? I feel safe in the routine of habits and things like that. And I thought I was getting control of things, right? But in reality, because it was coming from me inside, I thought I was getting control. But what was really controlling me was the eating disorder. I wasn't in control at all. I was actually giving up my control to this eating disorder. And then it became the eating disorder is controlling me through my habits, my behaviors, my anxieties. That's where, for me, Ed lies, in the anxiety, in the unknown. And that's the scariest place for me to be. So what do you think about it? Like, what's your experience with it, with control?
Well, mine started very young. I was kind of the more typical preteen, wanting to have control not only over my body, but control that I wasn't given because I was so young from my family. And I felt that they were controlling too much of what was going on because at 10 years old, I felt like I was very mature. And I felt like I could make a lot of those decisions on my own. And people had always told me that I was much more mature. I was far beyond my age. But it started with a conversation that my mother had with my pediatrician in front of me, talking about how my mom felt that I was on a path to being overweight and I should, what programs could I start? What nutrition type things should I be doing? And I got really angry. I was mortified and then I was angry.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
So I decided that one of the only things that they still had a lot of control over that I could actually control myself was what I put into my body. So I decided that I was going to control what I ate and what I didn't eat. And that's what happened. I just decided not to eat.
That's a beautiful point because I've been controlled a lot in my life. And that's the need that it stems from, is that I've never been in control of anything in my life either. So it's like it has so many different dimensions, whether it be from you feeling controlled all the time to series of events that have happened in your life that have made you feel the need to feel in control. There's so many different reasons or causations. You know what I'm saying, of why we arrive there. But we arrive to that control needing to be there because being out of control, it makes you feel unsafe and scared and vulnerable. And, it's just a hard place to sit with so much anxiety going on. Right. And how do we get control back? Well, for the first thing that dawned on me was I need to be aware that it's a problem and be aware when it's happening. And that's the hardest, that's not the hardest part. That's the biggest, the most initial part of the problem that needs to happen is to identify it, is to identify what's going on. Do I need to be in control? What's the reason? Who's talking right now? Is this RaCHAEL talking or is this somebody not beneficial talking? I mean, there are people like who have habits like cleaning or doing certain other habits that make them feel in control. You know what? Jeanette just said something here. Oh, there we go. I start cleaning up when I feel I'm losing control of a situation, as if it's seeing stupid, as if I could clean up my life, but it's calming me down. Yeah, those habits are a way to suppress that anxiety. And it's really coming from a place of feeling just out of control. And a lot of people do. They clean up, they check their door lock, 5 times a night to make sure it's locked. Those OCD type of behaviors tend to pop up because of that feeling of that need for us to be in control. I still, for me, I still have residual. I've started to dominate my narrative, my ed head, let's call it. Physically, I need to catch up. Mentally, I'm so much closer than I've ever been in my life, getting through all these issues. But that's that need. I find the more we are enslaved in our habits, the less control we actually have. I feel like my habits were controlling me. Does that make sense? Or if an addict or something, they're like, let it be alcohol or drug, whatever it may be, anybody who suffers with addiction or something like that, there's typically a tendency of underlying control that needs to go on because our world feels so out of control. And with an eating disorder, we tend to make our world smaller, like by isolating and things like that. I get a lot of times, Rachel, who do you think you are being so bubbly when you look so bad? Well, it's not that I don't know I look bad. Believe me, I don't think that this is beautiful. And let me clear that up. When people are saying that I'm beautiful, a lot of people are going, how dare you say that to her, and they get mad at that person that they're enabling me. They're not talking about, oh, I look pretty on the outside. That's not what they're meaning. They're meaning about the mentality or the heart is beautiful. And the words, the things, my attitude. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm saying I just want to dispel that myth. I don't rah for anorexia. I actually do the opposite. I poo-poo on it. I actually am trying to bring it out to make it more not of a taboo to talk about, because I feel it's such a stigma associated with eating disorder. They think it's about the food, when 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with the food. A few years ago, I don't want to say triggering numbers, but it's a healthy number, so I'll say it. I was 130 some pounds, but I was more destructive in my head than ever. Food didn't fix it if the problem was still wrong. And you know what the worst part had been? Is that going back and forth with my body, that was more taxing than me being malnourished, because your body can adjust. It'll eventually die. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but that back and forth, up and down, that yo-yoing of the body was far more detrimental than anything I was doing. So that's a big aspect of getting the mind where it needs to be, where the body will follow. But, we're a reflection of all of that. And I know I've been just going on and on. But what are your thoughts on it, Kelly, about control?
Well, for me, I have OCD pretty, not severely, but I have my little habits that I do all the time. And for me, a lot of that, I have what's known as checking OCD. which is like that checking the locks on things,
Right.
checking to make sure that I closed the freezer, checking to make sure I turned off the oven. I don't have to do it a certain number of times. I just, it's until I feel comfortable. So sometimes I might check
Yes.
it twice, sometimes I might check it 10 times. I just
Right.
to in my head feel comfortable.
Because it makes you feel safe,
It
right?
makes me feel safe. And it's not, I mean, and as frustrating as it can be for other people, it's not a destructive habit. So it's not one that I actively try to change because I need to feel comfortable, especially since I live alone. I live in my own house, but I live in a duplex, so I need to feel comfortable that nothing that I'm doing is going to affect them next door. If I leave my oven on,
Right.
God forbid something happened, I could cause a lot of destruction, and it would affect them next door. It would affect my bunnies down in the basement.
But that's a legitimate concern, though. I mean,
It is.
that's a logical concern.
It's
When it
logical, but it's not something that you necessarily need to do. Most people can do it once
exactly.
and be fine with that. I can't do it once.
That's what I was going to say.
So,
That the problem there is an error there, right? It's
yeah.
not a total causation of, oh, I just need to feel safe. There's some other stigmas, other reasons, other things behind it, that it's not just a healthy behavior, right?
Right.
And see, that's the hardest part, realizing, okay, what I'm doing is a result of something. Let's figure that out. I mean, of course, we need to be safe and, check those things. But when it's a compulsion, that's when it should be a warning sign, right? Because then our habits start to overtake us. Like you said, yours isn't very destructive. Mine have been destructive. I wanted to hurt myself. Not meaning like I loved it. I was carrying it over, the abuse, because it became my norm. My norm was the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
My norm was that. So in essence, I became the abuser. I became the abuser myself. So I really like to have candid conversations because, I'm very transparent about what happens. And when I come on with a good attitude, it can be misconstrued that I'm positive, I'm all happy because I'm still emaciated. No, actually, it's more of a bane. It's hard to be in a mentality where you're really pushing forward and then your body hasn't followed yet. So you get a lot of that stigma and criticism. Well, just give it time. My body has to take a certain amount of time. But the one thing I've noticed is recently, like a couple days ago, anxiety was at an all-time high. I wasn't even feeling like the RaCHAEL you're used to. We got this, let's do this. The doubts start piling up and it starts getting anxiety and it feels like, you're choking. How do we combat that? How do we do that? How do we fight that feeling of that anxiety? How do we get rid of that so that way we can calm ourselves down? For me was the hardest part is in the midst of that anxiety is identifying it. Okay, let's take a step back as to, I'm obviously anxious. Let's figure out why I'm anxious. Is it a logical anger or anxiety, or is it because that ed head is getting mixed up in this? There's too much ed head going on and it's causing more confusion and whatnot. So that has been a big part of me needing to move from this, is because my habits eventually enslaved me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And we become a victim of our own habits. I personally have, and the anxiety. See, I say the devil lives in the doubt, right? It lives in the negativity. That's where ed or anything that is challenging us, it resides in the emotional area, right? It doesn't reside in the logical area. It resides in the emotional area. And I noticed that the addiction or the eating disorder, you hear the whimper of somebody. They're all, let us in. And I'm like, no, you're going to knock over the computer. Sorry about that. I don't remember what I was saying. Sorry about that. Kelly, you go ahead. That was just too funny. It threw me off.
Oh, it's okay. You want me to go to another question?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
We've only actually covered one.
I know, right?
Actually, you did go through some of these things already, but just to kind of clarify, Maya had asked on one of your videos recently if you could share with us how you ended up underweight, just as a refresher and for anybody who's kind of newer to the group and hasn't heard.
Absolutely, Maya, and I think that was Christian. Which Maya, where was it from? Was it from YouTube or Facebook? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it might have been on one of your YouTubes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, Maya from YouTube. All right. I'm going to do a recap as to what happened. Is I initially started, I was working 2 jobs at the time. And what had started happening was I didn't really have much free time. This time that I was supposed to be sleeping or having other things going on, I would constantly be exercising and sticking to a certain meal plan. It was more orthorexia for eating healthy foods, but it started pretty much with over-exercising. And then the restricting happened as a result of, I know this sounds very bizarre, especially nowadays, but my work didn't allow us to go eat. It actually was frowned upon. And you would lose your job, believe it or not. The company was extremely dogmatic about that. If you went out, like let's say you go out to lunch or something like that, you see the people who went out to lunch were no longer there anymore. So they had us work through lunch. They said, I don't care, get it done, that kind of mentality. And then when it came to dinner and things like that, anytime we would go, like let's say I went out with Rod to dinner, there was something that was wrong. There was some explosion, at the job place that required me to go into a Starbucks for internet service. So I was constantly being pulled from that. And I let that happen because I was afraid of losing my health coverage and whatnot when I started really going under. But that's where it emanated from. And the restricting came later. I started self-imposing that restriction later down the road because it had already been habitually done. And then I started to feel, like the control in that behavior. And so it manifested from there. And the next thing I know, slippery slope. And I've been dropping. And people at my work were like, what's going on with RaCHAEL? She's not looking so good. And that actually helped me feel safe. Not looking good made me feel safe. So I started enjoying being called ugly and being called bad names. I started thriving on it. When I heard something negative like that about my appearance, that meant I was doing a good job in my head. That was the check mark that I needed to feel safe in my own skin, if that makes sense. Have you ever experienced anything like that yourself? I know there's a delay in the recording.
I don't think I ever wanted to feel ugly. I actually never felt ugly. I had the body dysmorphia that I had. Mm-hmm. When I would look in the mirror, I saw someone either I should explain. I had anorexia when I was very young, which led to bulimia. And then a few years after that, when I didn't want to purge anymore, I had binge eating disorder. So right. I've been kind of up and down and all over the place. But especially with the binge eating, when I would look in the mirror, I saw somebody who looked like a little overweight, but otherwise pretty normal.
Yeah.
I certainly never thought of myself as ugly. But when I would see myself in pictures, that's when it would hit me really hard that, oh my God, that's not the person who left this house earlier today. That's not the
Mhm.
person that I see in the mirror every day. I don't know who that person is. Um,
And you
but
bring up a good point, body dysmorphia, because that seems to kind of coexist in an eating disorder. To be honest, I've not heard anyone who's had an eating disorder who doesn't have body dysmorphia. If I'm wrong, please say something. But I'm saying the thousands of people that I've encountered, I always hear that there's a body dysmorphic component. We don't see ourselves correctly. I call them, to me, I call them egg goggles. That's what I call it. It's like beer goggles. You can, when you're like, yeah, they're looking good right now. I call them egg goggles because we cannot, or we have not, I have not. Let me address it as me. I have not seen myself accurately in the past. I see myself much more accurately now. It's very apparent to me. And personally, I don't like the bones. I don't like the emaciation. So that's going to change for me. My face will fill out. It's going to get better. It's a patient problem with me. I'm impatient with this whole process, because I like to speed it up a little faster. But the body can, has to do what it has to do. But that dysmorphic component, that interferes so much when you're trying to combat the eating disorder, because it fulfills false prophecies that are in our head. It confirms things or affirms things that aren't really in existence. So when I would talk about, when I looked at my, so I can't just look at myself back in the day and think, oh, that's good. I had to ask someone else, is this really good what I'm doing? I needed someone else's eyes to tell me what was really going on. But then I noticed also that there's a little caveat to that, because eventually, and like I said, I'm totally honest about this stuff. I call it ed fishing. And I don't know if you've heard that term before. It's something I made up. But I've noticed this behavior in myself as well as other people in the past. I notice ed people, and I'm included in this, and I'm not saying this is all of them, but we start fishing for affirmation that we're skinny, because it makes the ed happy. Like if I came to you and said, Kelly, is my face filling out? It's not filling out, right? It's not, right? It's not filling out. It's still emaciated, right? Those kind of comments, I'm exaggerating it to prove a point. It wasn't coming from a need for the healthy Rachel to hear those words. It was, I call it ed fishing, because we're fishing. When you're fishing for a compliment, people do that. I call it fishing for an ed affirmation. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if I go to someone and say, I haven't put on weight yet, have I? Or can you tell? And there's a way to reword it so it sounds like you're saying it for very healthy reasons. But I analyze why I say certain things, because there's no way I'm going to get better if I don't fix it. Because I do believe, and I know this for a fact, you can overcome an eating disorder and never have a problem with it again. I am a firm believer in that, because I know of people who have done that and they're fine with it. And you know what I was thinking of is, I have to look at myself and kind of laugh when those kind of calculations come into play. I'm like, Rachel, what are you doing? This is so absurd. This is so ridiculous. And by laughing about it, I realize how absurd it is that I'm actually doing that. So it's very self-effacing, I guess you could say, in so many ways. But that's kind of like, does that make sense when I say ed fishing? Have you experienced that yourself?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's been more, not necessarily fishing for it, but finding those people that would say nice things and then wanting to
Yes.
stay with them, stay far
Yes.
away from everybody else, and just stay by the people they're complimentary. And there haven't been that many, but the few that I did find, of course, I wanted to stick by because they're telling me everything that I wanted to hear at that point in time. Now, I don't want to hear that anymore, but
Now, what you wanted to hear or what your eating disorder wanted to hear?
I think it was a little bit of both. Because I never thought of myself as very pretty. I never thought of myself as ugly, but I didn't think of myself as pretty either.
Right.
And I didn't really think that the losing the weight was the key to being pretty. I just felt like that was one part of it. So I think it was partially the ed and then partially the ego.
Right. I was going to say the id, right?
Yep.
Yes, definitely. I mean, because there's ego involved in all of this, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a total complete about ego. It's about ourselves right there. And that's a beautiful point you brought up, because we start hanging out with people that are kind of affirming where we need to be. And that's not the most helpful at the time, even though they have no idea. I mean, they're just being supportive and, whatever. It's really up to us at that point of what to do and what to do with that information and things like that, and how we utilize it. And, we utilize it to destroy ourselves or to construct ourselves? Because I don't know, like for me, so much of I didn't realize how negative I was on myself, of how abusive I was. I'm like, when I say out loud what I was saying to myself, I'm like, damn, Rachel, you don't talk like that to anybody. You don't even think like that about anybody. What are you doing, young lady? I had to start third personing it, because when I talked about me, I have a tendency to just beat myself. Yeah, you're a piece of junk. That's what you get, you stupid idiot. Like that's what goes on. And then when I say it out loud, like, Rachel, you are, if I say it like that, I was like, this is so not how Rachel talks. This is so weird. So I started changing that narrative. And Carrie brings up a beautiful point. We allow Ed in because we don't want to feel. You know what? I was writing something down the other day, because that's a beautiful thing, because I was thinking the same thing. For me, for Ed was a way to numb out, to distance myself from people, to preserve myself. It became, in a way, my only confidant and friend. That abuser became like that kind of Stockholm syndrome. Having that eating disorder allowed me to numb out and distance myself from the reality of life. And then your world just shrinks, especially because it comes with isolation and depression. And depression in an eating disorder is like a depression on steroids, especially when you're malnourished, because your mind's struggling as it is, and your body is really struggling. So you don't even have the resources to fix yourself, because you're not fueling your body, right? And that numbing out process, that isolation of that world, this is just something I'll share with you too, is having been in this disease for such a long time, normality of life is lost on you, and it's scary and intimidating. Can you imagine waking up from like a coma after 15 years and go, okay, go blend in now? You're like, whoa, that's how it's been for me. The things that were normal in life became so overwhelming because I made my world so small and so unimportant. So right now, I would love to experience normality, go out and do something. But, with what's going on in the coronavirus and whatnot, I can't do that right now. But that's all right, as long as that mindset is going. But it would really, really be beneficial if I could start participating in normal activities. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Actually, that kind of leads into another question that someone had. and this is from Paige, I think also from YouTube, but I don't know. Rod sent me these things, so I'm not
no
sure where they
worries.
come
Yeah.
from. But it said, "You seem so happy in the age of Corona. What is your secret?"
Oh gosh. My secret is Kelly. But you know what also it is that having, how do I put this? Having my experience through this anorexia and whatnot has been extremely unique in some ways. People.
Uh-oh.
Why didn't you have it plugged in?
I thought I did. I didn't.
Ah! Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, let me see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
All right, let me pop out. I'll pop back in.
Can you hear me? Okay, Kelly's gonna come in and out right now. Our battery just died. We're so sophomoric on these things sometimes. Well, what was going on? We were just saying about how about having that control and things like that kind of got off base just a little bit. Here she is. Let's get her back in here. Hey, sweetie, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. The easiest way to fix that is just to go out and come back in. So I don't know what happened.
No worries. Yeah, my battery just died all of a sudden. I'm like, God dang it. This is so typical us.
It was your fault.
I know, it's always my end,
Yeah.
I remember what we were talking about now. How do I stay so positive? My experience through the eating disorder has been a very unique one, I would say. It's not something I hear from other people with an eating disorder. I've had some very extreme things happen, very traumatic things happen. So in the malaise of all the corona, anorexia has been my biggest fight. I'm not saying that corona isn't as important, but my challenge, what I've been through with anorexia has strengthened me with the battles from it so much that I have the mental, having that mental fortitude to combat these kind of anxieties of not being able to leave the house and being on quarantine. And also I look at it as, what alternative is there? I'm just going to be upset and angry about it. That's not a good, healthy alternative or a mindset for anything. All that does is lead to more negative emotions and doubt. So what I do is when I look at what people are, what's going on in the world, I have so much empathy. So it's very humbling, and it's easier for me to not be so negative. It's a very humbling experience having lived through what I've lived through, and then seeing people go through what they're going through. I look at it as there's no point. What is the benefit of being negative or angry at this situation right now? And having an eating disorder, I don't know of anyone who has an eating disorder and is super confident. They're typically very insecure, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-worth. We don't need more doubt introduced into the equation. You know what I'm saying? Of people's negativity or their comments, well, you're not getting any better. Well, you're like, okay, easy there. Well, would you shoot Bambi next? I mean, obviously someone's struggling. Why kick them when they're down? And it's not to rah-rah each other with fake pom-poms. It's not about that either. It's about a balanced view and staying positive and hopeful. Because if you're not hopeful, then what point is there? When there's no hope, you're pretty much dead, or you're trying to hurt yourself. right? So staying hopeful and not knocking someone down is so important. That's why they shield you so much at a treatment center, which that induces a problem in itself as well. Because in a treatment center, it actually made me feel more like a freak and less normal, because when we would go out, they would, somebody would jump in front of a mirror trying to block it in public. Like, you're all, okay, what are you doing? Stop making me look so, it's like the behavior that I've experienced with it had been, it made me feel less normal, when I think feeling more normal, and I'm using the word normal very loosely. I'm just meaning without ed, like not having those hangups and things like that. I think that normalcy of life needs to be, for me, it needs to be encouraged. It needs to be more, not let's look at the freak show. Let's make her feel more like a freak, or an eating disorder patient feel more like a freak. Make them feel more comfortable with who they are in their head, and build up their morale and their confidence and their support system. Because you can have all the support in the world, but if you don't want to fight this, you don't want to fight this disease, you're not going to fight it. You're just going to go down south, right? You can have all the support, you can have all of that money, food, all of that in the world, but if you're not engaged, if I was just taking a back seat to the driving, if I'm not taking the front seat to this driving of this vehicle, trying to get better, then I'm lost, right? You have to really, really encourage and move yourself, and not stay, because stagnation is where I find that I can slip. When things are stagnant, then it starts getting really rocky and unsafe, and then I start backpedaling and things like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you experience that yourself? Because everybody's, we're not all of the same experience here. We all have different experiences, arrive at it for different reasons. What has been like your feeling about that?
I mean, in the beginning, it didn't really affect me very much, because I got sick in January. So I was stuck in my house all through January and February,
Right.
and basically like only got my car back about 3 days before the stay-at-home order came into play. So I've been in quarantine pretty much this entire year, and very rarely having left, only on for important things that I needed to get done, or say, to do something very safely, where I knew that, I was going to be okay and people around me were going to be okay.
Right.
But I mean, for me, it's become a little bit more normal, I guess you could say. I don't know. I'm very introverted unless I'm around people that I know well. So I tend to like to be in my house. I like to be alone. I like to not be bothered by too many people. Obviously there are exceptions to that, but it hasn't bothered me too much. I think the last couple days, like you were saying, I wasn't having very good days. I've had a couple of really rough days over the last few days, but it's like anything else. It comes and goes. It's just that right now I don't have that outlet of, okay, I'm upset, I'm grumpy, I want to go out, I want to ride my bike, I want to, go talk to people, go see my niece, those kinds of things. I can't do those things right now, and it's frustrating. So,
I can relate in certain ways. Like all of 2019, I mean, I will say 99% of 2019, I was in home because of the edema. I couldn't go out. Because you're just in so much pain. Your bones are breaking. You're just trying to figure out a way to breathe. So for me, it feels like I've been on quarantine for a year. And it really, really does. And when the edema came off, then the corona happened. So I didn't have a chance to really even bridge that gap of wanting to, because for me, I love privacy, but I love being social. You know, for me, this is my therapy. You know, talking, going through our issues, let's support each other, let's fight each other. Has helped me in folds you can't even imagine. That has been my savior. And being able to be transparent has been, you know, with everyone about what's going on, because I tend to say what's going on. I kind of just like, here's what it is, like it or not, which, you know, people will like it or don't, but it is what it is. Just for me, I feel that the conversation helps us all. Like it's a reciprocal thing. You know, like I get some nourishment from you, you get some nourishment from me. And we don't use it to tear each other down. We actually use it to build each other up. And why not? Why not? What good is being a jerk? Like, seriously, what good is it? I know, I'm like, I have no idea. I get addicted to people like you, like who are, and it's not that we don't have bad days. I don't come on here. I mean, I don't just wake up like, woohoo, another day today. That's not how it wakes up. It was more like, oh my God, what? Oh geez, I have to be awake right now or alive right now. You know, like those kind of things we have to fight against. And, you know, the depression, the sadness, staying aware of all that and not giving into it. Because I don't know if it's easy to get into negativity. It's so much harder to be positive. It really is. It's so much easier for, you know, when you're not feeling good, or if I'm not feeling good, it's so much easier to be negative. It takes a lot of strength and work and hard work to get into a proper mindset and mood, if that's been your past. I mean, do you feel that way? That it's easier to be negative? Sorry, the screen froze just a sec.
You know, just for an example, yesterday, it was very, I don't think that it wasn't meant to be personal, but very personally, I was upset about it. And it was to just sit here, be angry.
The mic is cutting out. Hold on, Kelly. Can you hear me? Your mic is going in and out.
Mine is? Oh, that's
okay.
This is
now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. Say what you said again now.
I was just saying, you know, yesterday when I was going through all this stuff, it was a lot easier for me to be angry about it and to cry about it and all that. But it wasn't productive for me to go online and continue that negativity.
Right.
You know, for me, it helps me to go on and put up something positive, even if I don't feel that way in the moment, because then people come on and they say things, you know, they'll agree or they'll say things to you, and then that cheers me up. Not the putting the thing up, but
right.
You know, talking to people about it, or even just getting a comment or two here or there. You know, that absolutely helps. I mean,
because
I might still
starts a different dialogue, right? It starts a dialogue that helps you get out of that situation. What's hard is when you hear people who go online just vomiting all their, you know, blah, 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 bad stuff, and then wonder why they're not getting any positivity back, or, you know, what it is. We put, it's kind of like in the world, you throw out what you get in, what you throw out, you know, like you throw out something positive, a lot of times you will get something positive. But negativity, my Pauline is here right now, and she said something beautifully important. Negativity helps sort out our feelings. It can get crazy. Now, being critical of ourselves is very important, because how else are we going to grow? But when I feel negativity, negativity is really just poo-pooing on things. Being critical, however, I feel allows us to grow. It's not rah-rahing our bad habits. No, no, no. You actually need someone, a good friend or a family member, to point it out. My I would say requirements for a good friend are really being really honest. Like, I need someone to be extremely honest with me. When I find out that they white lie or fudge or walk on eggshells or do something like that, then I withdraw. That's not really what I'm looking for. A good friend will tell me what's wrong. I don't have to cajole or coax them out of it or to try to find a reason for them to say it. And they're not trying to be hurtful. They're trying to be constructive. Now, that's the most important thing. One of my most important I need for in a friend or family member is that kind of honesty to criticize me. Because if I might not see it, you might see something that I'm doing that is not appropriate in my recovery that you really reach. You might want to chill out on that because of this reason. Let's talk it out. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of support that we need, especially when we're in that mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's do one last question and wrap this up.
Okay. Okay. This was one that actually I was looking at a few weeks ago too, and this was also on YouTube. So this was from Gold Seraph.
Oh, and nice.
Yeah, and they're asking, they basically said, you're eating, but your face is not filling out. Why? Are you making yourself sick? No. I don't intentionally make myself sick. What happens is all that you saw in the face, 99% of it was just water. And it doesn't just happen to me. This happens to a lot of people going and refeeding. And the edema is, for me, I'm extremely sensitive to the edema. My body will put on that water fast. Ever since the hospital induced it, then I noticed that it happens much easier. So do you hear Bud? Bud has to give his little pom-pom. Yes, my lion, you are the boss of us. We get it. He's my little lion. He's surveying his pride. But yeah, no, I don't intentionally make myself sick or anything like that. I've hurt myself in the past on purpose, but if I'm trying to make myself sick, like sick to my stomach or sick like that, no. And in anorexia, you make yourself sick, but nothing like I've intended to make myself sick like that. And my face will come back. My face is always the first to go, the last to go, first to show. That's what my face does. When I start putting on, it shows all of a sudden water all over in my face. And I start to look more, I can show you guys pictures I look more bloated than, like, if someone who's having too much alcohol, I get a bloated look. But it does look, before that, it does look good. It looks like, wow, she's doing really well. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going, no, it's not the real weight yet. So please just remember that that's going to drop off, and then it's not going to be so great left if it doesn't keep continuing. And carbohydrates are what put a lot of water on me, a lot of water on me. So for me, I have to be very careful with the carbohydrates. That's why the process is going so slow again. After that infection I had, then I had to reintroduce nutrition and do it gradually to avoid refeeding syndrome. There's not been a severe sickness recently other than just the nausea and just fighting through that. But I keep pushing the nutrition every day. I add something, just a little bit here, a little bit there, working with the dietitian too as well. But like she knows, my body's extraordinarily, bizarrely sensitive. So we have to take very good care to stay out of the hospital. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, guys, if you guys have more questions, please feel free to leave it in the feed below. We're going to do this again,
back and forth, and Kelly has been my most amazing friend and just companion and family member. She's family to me. She's my heart, she's my soul, and she gets it. We come from different reasons to this disease or to any challenges, but we have a commonality. We both love each other. I love you, Kelly. I love you guys. I love you, Rachel. Yeah, said it. I love you, love you, love you. And we're going to do this again. Be safe out there, my loves. Post questions below that you have, and we're going to do something else next time. Something different that will be fun, and I haven't told you yet. I love you, love you, love you. Love you, Kelly.